All right, let's get back into this. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania. She is a member of the Judiciary Committee, and this is going to be the question that she's going to get from constituent after constituent, reporter after reporter. Congresswoman, welcome to the show, and let me ask you this question. Based on what you've seen here, do you think the Judiciary Committee should start impeachment hearings?
Hi, thank you for having me on, Chuck. I'm sorry the reason for it, frankly. I think what we have to do is do our job. I'll get to impeachment in a minute, but number one, we have to take a look at this report. I've been beginning to read through it. I brought it with me on my car ride down here. It's a very interesting, a very disturbing read that does not exonerate this president. So what the Judiciary Committee has to do is make sure that we get the full report, unredacted, that we have Mr. Barr come before us and explain his mischaracterization of the report, and his excuses for really siding with the president instead of being the independent voice that we would expect of an attorney general. And then we have to speak to Mr. Mueller. I think it's critical that we do that. We are in a process of oversight. It is our constitutional obligation. And if the things that are revealed in this report are as troubling as they appear, and that other things come up as a result of our oversight, whether it has to do with emoluments, or campaign finance errors and paying off porn stars and things like that. We have oversight to do, and there may be enough evidence that amounts to an impeachment proceeding. We're just not there yet. You said
you believe Bill Barr mischaracterized this report. How specifically do you believe he mischaracterized it?
He mischaracterized it by allowing the president to try to claim exoneration, and also by saying that in this report and with the work with Special Counsel Mueller, the president fully cooperated. Let's take a look at what the president actually did. He fired Jim Comey because he didn't believe he was loyal enough. He tried to have McGahn fire the special counsel himself. I don't call that cooperating. McGahn rightly refused to do so. He then harassed and mocked his own attorney general, Jeff Sessions, for months upon months because Sessions did the right thing in the instance of recusal. He also failed to come before the grand jury, refusing to come in to testify, and then he handed in some written answers and would not respond. When Attorney General Barr characterizes the president as fully cooperating with a special investigation that he was not a part of, and he knows these underlying findings, that's mischaracterizing the president's participation in the report. The report itself does not exonerate this president. We know that. Special counsel said if he found reason to exonerate the president, he would have clearly stated so. But
do you believe, Congresswoman, that Mueller's intent was to let the decision on prosecution be up to you guys in the Judiciary Committee?
I think that's possible. He believes it is, and I believe there's a part of the report where he said it is on the Congress, on the Judiciary Committee, as well as other oversight committees. But certainly the duty is on us in Judiciary to make sure we complete the investigation and put a light on it. Just let's see the whole thing. You remember in March, the president said, let the people see it. Right. You remember when Barr testified for his confirmation hearing, what he said to the Senate? He said, I don't think it would be in the public interest for me to summarize or partition, I'm paraphrasing, this report. Well, whose interest is he working for now? The duty is upon us in Congress to complete the oversight. I take that duty very seriously.
Let me ask you about the fact, though, that the special counsel couldn't find enough evidence to do conspiracy charges. As much as distasteful as some of it looks, as maybe unethical as it comes across when it's dealing with a foreign entity, if the evidence isn't there, what more do you guys think you can do? And what should your role be on that?
Part of the language that I read in the report, the special counsel leaves the door open, that not all of the evidence was available to him. Part of the lack of cooperation by the Trump folks is that apparently they destroyed evidence and they destroyed emails. Imagine that.
So do you believe the conspiracy question is an open question, that this is not, that despite that it's still an open question in your mind, whether there is enough evidence to prove that people associated with the Trump campaign entered into a conspiracy with some Russians?
I'm reading the report for its face value, and early in the report, Special Counsel Mueller says he did not find conspiracy. I take him at his word. I want to read all of the rest of the evidence to see what happened. You notice what else he did? He very clearly said to the American public and anybody who bothers to read this, he was not looking at collusion. So no matter how many times Mr. Barr or Mr. Trump say no collusion over and over again, that's not what we were looking for. That's not what Special Counsel was looking for. That's not a legal chargeable offense, and it's a charade.
You had said earlier you want to hear from Bill Barr. You want to hear from Bob Mueller. Do you want to hear, I take it you want to hear from Bob Mueller in particular before you make a decision on whether to open an impeachment inquiry? Do you think that testimony is necessary before you make that decision?
I value his experience, his judgment, and the evidence he collected, the process he went through. So I really would like to hear, I'm certain we will want to hear from Mr. Mueller. And I have a feeling Mr. Mueller will want to talk with us and tell the American public the truth and the facts. That's what the American public has a right to. There's an awful lot at stake. Take a look at what the underlying investigation was. It was an attack on our democracy, attack on our right to vote. And do you know what Donald Trump did today? Did you read the recent thing that he has done? He's opened up a campaign finance where he's trying to raise $1 million in 24 hours as a result of this saga that he has taken the American people through.
Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, I take it that this is going to be something you guys will be dealing with for quite some time. Democrat from Pennsylvania, thanks for coming on and sharing your views. Much appreciated. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Beat the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.